السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him, we praise Him, we glorify Him, beseech Him to send His choicest salutations upon His most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, and upon all those who choose to tread in His path until the last day. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed to be together on this Mubarak day of Jummah. May Allah make us from amongst those who reap from its unique barakah, its unique ni'mas, its unique virtues and blessings. And despite our being physically separated, we still have opportunity to maintain spiritual connectedness, to increase in our sense of cohesiveness, especially at a time that is as tumultuous as the time that we find ourselves in right now. May Allah grant ease to all those who are feeling any type of anxiety, stress, or difficulty wherever they are in the world. In these last days, this last week, months, even years for so many, let alone what it is that we might be thinking we will be privy to in the days and weeks ahead, has created a level of agitation, instability, rooted in uncertainty that has a deep potential of causing a lot of internal conflict and agitation. That statistically, we're in a place right now where people have estimated that 7 out of every 10 individuals is experiencing stress related to the current presidential election cycle. And that means there's a good chance that you who is listening either yourself has experienced some type of anxiety or knows somebody who is going through some type of difficulty or anxiety themselves. May Allah make things easy for all of us. That sense of internal conflict, that agitation, that turbulence in a time that's most tumultuous. And the subjectiveness of it is something that each one of us introspectively has to reflect upon. That whether we ourselves are individuals who are dealing with anxiety or we know somebody who is, it becomes imperative to know and gain familiarity as to how we can navigate some of that so that we can either help to heal our own hearts or we can be a source of healing for the hearts that are around us. The challenges are not to be dismissed. That the ideal is what one might have envisioned, but the uncertainty can create a lot of anxiety on pre-existing anxiety. It is not the time to meet oneself with platitudes alone. That where and how we speak to ourselves has to be very different from how we speak to those that are around us and looking for some mode of assistance to be able to navigate the complexity, the challenges of what it is that we find ourselves facing. First, there's nothing wrong with being in a place of stress. You don't want to meet stress with more stress. To say that the ability to combat a negative thought is to meet it with yet another thought that's rooted in something that indicates that being stressed or anxious means that you are somehow in a weaker state of faith or you do not have trust in God or any of these things. That's not going to be healthy, nor is it necessarily true. The crux of much of this becomes breaking up and disrupting a cycle and not having to go through it on one's own. We are taught that so much of who it is that we are in our spiritual health is attached to what it is that we consume. And if your consumption in these days has been limited to media outlet after media outlet and social media stream after social media stream that's bombarding you with every second of every minute of every hour of every day for the last however many days and the days that are ahead, with imagery, sounds, sound bites that are meant to captivate you in order for you to then stay frozen in that state so that you're just yearning for more and more and more and more, you're going to find yourself in a state that's asphyxiated. Why people are able to write the same self-development book over and over that has content that's quite reflective of book upon book that was written before is that thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions will read and acknowledge the validity of the content, but there will be very few in comparison that actively do what needs to be done in order to disrupt it. So the ability to breathe, to relieve stress and anxiety so that the nafs is not what we succumb to, but we become in control. And there's deep benefit and blessing in our adhkar at this time. Literally, when you say God's name, Allah, you are going from the entirety of your breath, from the starting point of where it can begin to the ending point of letting it out. Allah. But you're breathing. And in that La ilaha illallah, you're still ending on Allah's name. And with every moment of just utterance of Allah, 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 you're also taking a breath. You're breathing. And in the midst of anxiety, we forget to rest. There's not relief that's there. And the release of anxiety stems from the regaining of the ability to breathe. And so a primary is to just let yourself be in a sphere where you're taking those breaths and very purposefully connecting to the entity that you know before there was anything, there will be Him. And after there is nothing, there will still be Him. That He is the first, He is the last, He is our creator, our sustainer. And even in the gift of the name that we call upon Him is the ability for the heart to find rest, because it causes you to take that breath that anxiety restricts you of. Allah, Allah, Allah. Then when you say it, you then take a breath in. Allah, Allah, Allah. And the breath that releases, but it allows for the system to be calm. And as you then regain control over your own self, you find yourself in a place where you say, I don't want to be like the masses, but I am going to yield my consciousness. And what I know and what I hear right now is something that I have already heard and read before, but now ilm in and of itself requires hikmah, knowledge, necessitates wisdom, so that what you know is then acted upon. So you turn off the television, or you change the channel. You cut yourself down on the consumption. If you were to eat and eat and eat and eat, it would definitely bear adverse impact upon you. If you were to just drink and drink and drink and drink, it would definitely create some negative consequence. Sensory perception is not just what it is that we see with our eyes, but also what it is that we taste, what we hear, what we touch and feel, what we smell. And it gets synthesized and processed by the hearts that are within us. So yeah, will it be hard? Of course it'll be hard. but it's because it's habitual. It's not coming from a place where you are in control. You might tell yourself you're in control, and that's what a capitalistic society wants you to do. It wants you to think that you're thinking your own thoughts. But the reality with supremacy added to capitalism is that the thoughts that you think are not your own thoughts, but the thoughts that they want you to think. And you are so prone to saying that this is not something that I am becoming habitual with or addicted to, that the way that you prove to yourself that it is not a problem is by continuing to do it. But just like you won't eat and eat and eat, and you won't just drink and drink and drink, you don't want to just hear and listen and hear and listen and hear and listen to the same rhetoric over and over and over. But when you break away from it, you're going to have a plan or a strategy as to what you're going to do in the time in between. And here and now, you want to think of healthy outlets, not things that will hurt you or hurt somebody else. Definitely stay away from the haram, but where you can, lean and support and socialize, even if it's through the prism of something virtual. You can go for a walk, go for a walk. You can go for a run, then go for a run. You can cook something. You can take a hot shower, a hot bath. You can call up a friend, reach out to someone. But don't recreate the process that has you turn off the television or silence the notifications from social media, and then you get together with people and you just talk about this nonsense more. What it does, worry and anxiety, is create for us the facade of doing. But what regaining consciousness and breathing and enabling our inward to relax so that our outward is now processed through the heart that is given to us, can allow for us to then see, well, where is our role in remedying all of this? And I say this to you that in the midst of everything, we are in a heavy place, and it's okay to say that. The Prophet ﷺ's wife asked him, what was the hardest day in your life? He doesn't say to her that we don't complain or there's nothing difficult. But when she asks him what was the most difficult day, he says to her that Taif was the most difficult day. That it was a hard day for the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's going through whatever we can imagine our stresses to be, amplified 1,000,000 times over. He bears the burden of not just the people that he sees persecuted in his own city because they are believing his message that he is preaching on God's behalf. He not only carries what their realities have become, but his persona and temperament is such that when there is something happening that's problematic, he also says that he must be the reason he's not doing it well enough. He goes into a place thinking that he will be welcomed, and not only is he not welcomed, the people of that town who run it, the chieftains, command the children and the servants to run him out in an abusive way. So much so that he is bleeding so much that what's he wearing on his feet become hardened to the soles of his feet because of the excessive amount of blood that's coming from them. And he's asked, what was the hardest day? And he says, that day was hard. These days can be hard. It's okay to say that. These weeks can be hard. These months and what lies ahead. But what the anxiety does to us and the worry does to us is also inhibits and paralyzes us. And I say this to you not just as individuals, but as a community collectively. That in the backdrop of pandemic, as a community within months, while many other places and people were sitting still, you all raised $2.5 million to assist people in need. That as a community, we purchased a building just a few weeks ago that will serve as a shelter for women and children who are survivors of intimate partner violence and abuse. That our students are still right now raising funds for orphans, children in need, refugees around the world. You say, what can we do? So we keep doing what it is that needs to get done. And the biggest paralysis that comes is not necessarily from things external, but things that are taking place and shackling us from within. It's not that we become indifferent to realities, civil unrest, may Allah protect us from it. The recognition by so many who at a previous time might have been in denial of the reality that has been anti-blackness, not just in the last week or the last month or the last year, but in the reality of what the country is built upon. There are so many things: job loss, healthcare loss, unemployment rates increasing. But to understand that at the base of it all, it's okay for some of us to sit back and say that this is hard, and for the rest of us to step up who might not be feeling it in that way as a means of support for everyone else, so that we can still continue to build, we can still continue to grow, we can still continue to do what we have capacity to do. We can still learn how to be a part of remedies so that we are a continued source of hope for people in this world and never the reason that they might dread it. And so turn off the television if it's bothering you. If I told you that me pushing my nose here hurts my nose, and I say I don't know what to do, and I keep just pushing my nose over and over, you better tell me that, well, you should just stop pushing your nose, first of all. Turn off the thing that the consumption of it is making you go in a state of internal agitation. Then breathe, rest, relax. Engage in whatever it is that can recenter you. If you don't know your outlets, ask some of the people close to you. Rest, sleep well, eat well. It's not the time to turn towards complacency. We are people who aspire towards rida, real contentment. We don't want to feel good just in the moment. We want to feel good all the time. And we want an abode in the place of ultimate goodness, not in the false realities of this dunya. And where you then have opportunity, you can sit introspectively and learn about yourself. That our emotions are never good or bad categorically. Allah gave us each one of our emotions and they all have a value to them. Fear is an important emotion. Anxiety is an important emotion. Just as important as love. Just as important as desire. Just as important as appreciation. What becomes important is our reactions and responses to those emotions, and they can be categorized as good or not good. So what we might perceive to be a good emotion, like happiness or joy, can actually be something that's problematic if I find my joy in making you miserable. That's not good, that's bad. Anger becomes an important emotion. It's not a bad emotion or a good emotion, it's just an emotion. And when you get angry that there is a racist, fascist individual who has so much support, then that's a good thing to be angry about. That you do not want people to be sitting in incarceration in the midst of pandemic for crimes that aren't even considered an infraction. They're there because they can't afford bonds that are placed upon them. You want to be angry about children sitting in cages at borders, hundreds of whom have no idea where their parents are and will likely not meet their parents because the government that put them in the cages doesn't know where their parents are either. You want to be angry when one of our black sisters and brothers gets shot in the street and there is no consequence, an additional source of anger to the law enforcement that took their life and murdered them. What your emotions tell you are about yourself. They're data points. They're giving you insight and meaning to you. What is it that you hold valuable? What is it that you take as a priority? What is it that gives you insight as to what is really important to you at the end of the day? But to get to a place where we can start to then shape a sense of self through ourselves requires, again, first and foremost, the space of rest, to be able to breathe and relax. You got to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. The Prophet ﷺ, he leaned on his companions and the people that were around him. He had support mechanisms. There are likely many of us who have people who we know we don't associate with just because of shared externals, shared race, shared ethnicity, shared class. That familiarity and similarity sociologically can create in-groups and out-groups for us and within us. But where we connect at the level of shared internals, people who we know that when we speak to and connect with, they help to uplift our inside, and there's reciprocity in our friendships. Reach out to them, even if you haven't some time. Turn to them in a moment and allow for yourself to have the space to release, but also to just refamiliarize yourself with who it is that you are. If you were trying to wonder as to where and why things are in the way that they are, then understand those same echo chambers that create perspectives of reality upon us can be very easily popped by what reality actually ends up being. And so where we find ourselves is not where we necessarily will end up. And ultimately, how we understand our role in this individually is going to be based off of the state of self that we bring to the conversation on determining as to what it is that we want to do. There's not meant to be an ease based off of who the victor of this presidential election ends up being. But to understand that moving and going forward and taking on the characteristics of what our book, our tradition teaches us, of people who have iman, aspire towards ihsan, embrace their greatest gift, that is Islam, sees that we are the doers of our faith, not just the speakers of it. And where and how challenges arise and difficulty comes, we are meant to be those who aspire towards a state of inward and outward balance that is going to be unique in our own journeying as to how we can get there. But the first step is saying that I want to. And the way your stomach tells you when it's hungry and your throat tells you when it's thirsty, your soul, your heart, your mind, every part of you that makes you who you are is going to give you indication into the state that it's in. These are not times as well that you want to deflect any of the stress, any of the anxiety on the people who are around you, the people who are closest to you. You know you're in a state of frustration. It does not make it okay to take it out on your children. You know that you are in a state of agitation. It does not make it okay to take it out on your spouse, your significant other. Don't take it out on your elderly parents. Jannah is still at the feet of your mother. But your coping mechanisms, your strategies, it's a unique circumstance. You might not know how to do it. But you're still, at the end, not able to justify actions that are ill based off of the feelings that compel them. Because you can feel whatever it is that you want to feel. You are still responsible for what you do in response to what you're feeling. On a broader theological sense, when someone asks, well, why would Allah allow for this? We can look into discussions on theodicy and the existence of evil and suffering. But foundationally, you and I will individually have a perspective of the divine that we can't believe simply because the other person believes it. And if we believe in a God that we have never really thought of who he is, or read his book, or understood him through the words that he has given to us. It does not mean that we still do not have a conceptualization of who our God is individually, because of the many paradoxes of choice. One paradox is laden in the idea that when you do not choose, you have essentially made a choice. And if you have unconsciously crafted for yourself a perspective of God, one that is rooted in unfamiliarity, and you try to take that unfamiliarity of the divine and try to make sense of an uncertainty of what tomorrow will bring, that uncertainty and that unfamiliarity come together, and they're going to definitely break you apart inside. And if you're going to say that I need to choose what I understand and conceptualize God to be, then I would say choose to believe in the God of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who went through real difficulty, real turbulence, real tumultuous times, but didn't stop. He kept going. Allowed for his people to slip and make mistakes, and was still there to help them stand up and get back on their feet. Who turned in the aftermath of battle, not in the aftermath of a meal or the aftermath of a walk or a stroll or after a pilgrimage or tawaf or at the breaking of a fast. In the aftermath of a battle has taken place. And then a mother is looking for a child, and they find each other after being stricken with anxiety. And they embrace and meet as any mother and child would in that circumstance. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to his companions, do you believe that this mother would ever harm her child? Do you think that she would hurt him, throw him into a fire? Of course not, O Messenger of God. He says that Allah is more merciful to his creation than a mother is to his child. In the midst of all of this, if you're trying to figure out what is going to happen and where it's going to go, but you learn about yourself through the self, paradoxically. And you're trying to figure out why God would do something before even coming to a place of trying to recognize who God is. It's going to definitely equal agitation and anxiety. But if you want to find truth in the promise of the hadith of the best of creation that says that the affair of the believer is unique, that when something good happens, they praise the divine and there's good in that for them, and when misfortune befalls them, they patiently persevere and there's good in that for them. You take this as an opportunity to say to yourself, who is God to me? And how do I understand him to be? I believe in a God, my sisters and brothers, that is not just watching me, but watching over me and watching over all of you. A God who has given us a day of judgment, not just in terms of our self-accountability, but a day where all of these questions of why are going to be answered and will be made sense of. A God who, when I'm asked about why things go the way they go in terms of what he does, I recognize that my role is to not speak on his behalf definitively, but to remember that he is the most merciful of those who show mercy, the source of an unconditional love, the most gentle, the most kind, that he is beautiful and loves beauty, that he is compassionate, and so much more. And where I can then let God be God, I embrace myself and not answer people's questions in simply words that are platitudes, that this is a test from God, put your trust in God, have faith in God. The person's coming with anxiety and agitation. You are not meant to just give them answers that validate your passivity, but you have to give them answers that affirm the emotions that they feel. And then say to them that sometimes we don't know the answers to these questions, but we still do what we can. This is where the hadith tells us that if the last hours are upon you, the end of time is there, and you are planting a seed for a tree, you still plant the seed, man. Get it done. Do what you can. You take your cues not from a recognition of validation of something or the other, through the victor of one election. But you understand that ultimate validation and a sense of self can be in the incessant pursuit of God's creation, where you seek strength and validation from an entity that is divine, that is looking for every reason to accept from you and to not push you away. And then you stride on this earth in a way where you understand that it is a temporary existence, just on a return to where we need to go. But what we do here will play an integral role on where we end up there. And may Allah make us all people of His Jannah without any judgment. But you don't want to be incapacitated. You don't want to believe or put all your hopes on one thing. This is a systemic and structural issue. A landslide victory would not have indicated that there is still racism that has to be dealt with, that there is still classism that is just as terrible, that there is still so much. And that means there's opportunities and openings for us. As a community, what can we do? We still do the things that we do. So in the midst of a pandemic, we raise money for people who are in need. In the midst of a pandemic, we open up a building that's a shelter and start to renovate it and go out and do more. In the midst of all of this, our students raise money for the orphans and refugee children around the world. And how is that a response? It's not either or, it's both and. You get done what you can get done and you keep going. You remember who your teacher is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You put your trust in a God that you have sat and reflected and contemplated on and continue to contemplate on, so that where we started in this conversation actually bears merit, that you can say Allah and breathe as you utter His name. And it brings a balance and a sense of real rest and tranquility within, as the remembrance of God is meant to. Not in a way that says I will be indifferent or I will run away from my responsibilities, but will give real resilience and an opportunity for those of us who can maneuver some of the turbulence externally with a distinct response to support those who are taking it with more stress and instability. Right now is an important time to check on people and see if they're okay. And so on this day of Jummah, going into the weekend, make sure that you are picking up the phone and just asking people, especially those who you know no one else is going to be talking to. There are people in our community right now who have been at home as perhaps the only Muslim in a family of people who have deep disdain for Islam. They might have very distinct political viewpoints, religious viewpoints, all kinds of viewpoints that are very different from the people around them. There are some people who have no one around them. All they have is their television, their computer. But they have you, they have me, and we have that ability. Let others check in on you as well. Don't let it be somebody else's responsibility. If you are watching this right now and listening to this, that means you have the technology and capability to turn it off and use it to reach out to somebody else. Make sure you're engaging in your own self-care continuously. Where opportunities arise to be a part of something, don't do it in emotional reaction, but with real strategy, real presence. Allow for yourself to see that all of these things, they will come to an end. Whether we witness their end or not, that's a different question. But you move forward in a way where you find peace in the places that are actually meant to give you peace. And do not be surprised at the agitation that you get from the things that are meant to cause agitation. And allow for yourself to reflect upon what these things are doing to you, not to everybody else, but to you in particular. And if it's bringing about something that is not good, then let it go. It's okay. No matter what, if you watch this for 24 hours straight or 14 hours or no hours, the conclusion is going to still be something you can find out when it happens. And all this other time, spend it with your loved ones. Spend it in exercise, in reflection. Spend it in something that's going to uplift you. But let yourself be the one that's in control. If it's much harder and much difficult and you need distinct support, reach out to us. And if we are not able to help you, we will try our best to connect you and refer you to those who can. But don't let this day of Jummah end before you are checking in on the people who are around you and helping them to get to where it is that they want to go, which is a place of inward contentment that is never going to be reached by anything that comes from things external. You want to nourish what's taking place inside, then do it with things that are also internal, not things that are external. Because then where will you be when those things that are external are no longer in your presence? As we are moving forward in the coming weeks, we pray that inshallah ta'ala, Allah brings ease to the people of this country and throughout the world, and makes us those who always stand on the side of real beauty, truth, justice, and integrity. We know that there's a lot of difficulty people are experiencing, and next weekend, Sheikh Aisha Prime, she's going to be hosting a seminar, a mini spiritual retreat that you can sign up for on our website. I would encourage all of you to sign. No one will be turned away from registration. It's called The Path to Peace. But it's about how we can inwardly remedy some of what the world at times claims it can help us to heal, but in reality does not create healing. Spiritual development and refinement, creating that inward stability. It'll be Friday evening and Saturday as well, in the early afternoon and late afternoon for a few hours. But you should definitely join it and be a part of it. Our students are also still raising funds. And I'm going to put in the Zoom, and it's on the other platforms, the different ways that you can contribute. That our MSAs at NYU are a part of an initiative called Charity Week. And on this blessed day of Jummah, we would ask that you help to support them in this endeavor. They have a crowdfunding at launchgood.com/campaign/New York University _4. And you can find it online and on our social media, and it's on the captions of the platforms other than Zoom, and I just put it in the Zoom chat box. Please do contribute to it and encourage others to as well, so that where you are in any place right now, you're not being kept from doing good. And I'm going to say this as a closing point, that Allah is with us, my sisters and brothers. And it's not He who steps away from us. And in a moment like this, when you're feeling really low, just know that Allah's promise is true. Any difficulty that comes, there will be ease that comes thereafter. He says it to us twice to just emphasize it that much more. After Sheikh Aisha's program, the weekend after, myself and Sheikh Suhaib are going to be doing something on what happens to the soul after we pass away, as well as how to cope with the loss of loved ones, and we'll put some information on that out on our email list and social media. But please do sign up for Sheikh Aisha's program next weekend on how to find that path to peace, especially in these days of deep anxiety. It'll really help to give you tools and techniques as you move forward and meet more difficulties. Because Allah's promise is not that you will have a life that is without turbulence. Allah's promise is that He's given to us the tools and techniques to meet them as challenges as we reach our best potential in pursuit of a world that is much greater than this one. And please do give to our students. Click on the launch good. It's been shared on the Instagram, on Facebook, as well as Zoom. Whatever it is that you can give, inshallah, would be appreciated. Our website is icnyu.org. You can sign up for the weekend seminars there, as well as scroll through my social media to find the postings on it. And so as we close in dua, I would ask that you all just recenter yourself to the space and allow for yourself to realize that wherever and however we are in this moment, that what lies ahead, we will be able to meet it and take it on in the best of ways. And inshallah ta'ala, what comes after that in a place of eternality, a place that is forever, is a place that is much greater and better than anything that we find ourselves in right now. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma laka alhamdu kama yanbaghi liwajhika wa azim sultanik. لك الحمد حمدا طاهرا طيبا مباركا فيه إلى يوم الدين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi. For our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, and gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness or jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope, hearts that are drawn to things of goodness and beauty, hearts that find themselves in a state of tranquility and rest through your remembrance. For it is indeed in your remembrance that hearts find rest. Help us, Ya Allah, to be the best of supporters to one another during these turbulent times. Let not any one of us feel alone, unloved, or by themselves. Grant each one of us the tawfiq to be a means through which your creation feels hope, strength, courage, and support in these days. Let not this blessed day of Jummah end upon any one of us without us first becoming a means of real illumination for someone else. For our own anxieties, our own frustrations and pain, Ya Rab, we ask that you bring to us healing and stillness. Remove from us any source of agitation and give us the strength to walk away from those things that distract us. Help us to find the rest that we are in pursuit of, the inward peace that you promise to us through the observance of your advices, your counsels, what your book teaches us. Make us those, Ya Allah, who turn to your book and to your messenger's example as we make our decisions and choices, even those that might seem to be the most mundane. Help us, Ya Allah, by blessing us with leaders who are good in every sense of what goodness is. Bring forward from our community, from your creation, people who demonstrate sound ethics, good morals, live by real values, and are worthy of being followed. And make us, Ya Rab, followers who are worthy of good leaders. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم الله خير. It was good to spend this time with all of you. I hope that you are keeping well, inshallah ta'ala, and that you and your loved ones will be blessed always by our loving Creator, Azza wa Jal. But please do keep me in your prayers. You all are in mine as always. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.